up our SME business unit at G3G Africa. He's been part of the SAP Business One community for the past 15 years, growing from an implementation consultant to being the driving force behind his team. He has a 360-degree understanding of how businesses should operate optimally with the correct technology stack and the perfect technology partner providing the underlying support. Rohit is the EMEA regional manager for SAP with over 10 years B2B software sales experience. He manages a team of 15 people to deliver the region's P&L targets. Speaking of sales, and Rohit is passionate about business intelligence and helping businesses to become more data-driven in their decision-making. Welcome, gents. Over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. A warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. I would just like to welcome Rohit and Alexia again today. So Rohit, over to you.
Thank you for the opportunity, G3G. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Let me just share my screen. I'm going to set to the PowerPoint mode. If you can confirm, you can see my screen, Ian?
Yes, thank you, Rohit. I can.
Okay, I'm going to go full screen and let's start the session. Okay, brilliant. Morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this session. This is a bit of a whistle stop, but I'm bringing some of my experience, some of the KPIs and analytics we use within the business and from the experience of us implementing it for businesses globally, and starting with some basic ones and taking it to an advanced level. So, you know, the introductions, Michelle very kindly did that. We have a high level agenda. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some very focused KPIs and then build it up. So some lower level KPIs, and then we build it up on top of it to get to an advanced level KPI. So the context first is very important. And generally, as we work with predominantly ERP softwares, and SAP is a very important component of that, a lot of our analytics or experience is with customers within the realms of the ERP space, or the relevance of that ERP space. So you're looking at wholesale distributors, manufacturers, retailers, where the context of sales, customer, product is different to maybe say a services organization as well. But even there, the context does not change on some of the simpler ones. So one of the ones that or if I want to start with the KPI, the first one I would look at is any form of trend I want, where I can understand what is my sales, what is my cost, and what is my margin. In its simplest form, sales, cost, margin, and put a time trend around it. Just that simplicity gives you a lot of information to start to understand and start to see your business performance over time. And this is always our starting point whenever we talk to customers, whenever we walk in. This is sometimes available to them. This is sometimes a finger in the air for them as well. But the power of something like this is very useful. So in its simplest form, this is where I would start. Then if I go and take it one step further, now this is where a business is saying, okay, I have an understanding of what is my sales, cost, and margin. Now I want to put a target. And I want to put a target because I want to see whether the business can achieve that target or not. And this is, again, very important, because what is the focus of the business? What is the focus of the sales department? And if you look at purely from a sales or a revenue perspective, how do I align my teams, my whole business, to work towards going after a target or a number for the whole year? And I think a lot of businesses dread that sometimes. I'm not going to claim our businesses, even though we have a BI software, we live and breathe numbers. I won't comment that we are the best at doing that, but this is something some of the most or some of the greatest businesses or the most efficient businesses that they run, they're able to run that way when the whole business, the unit, the function, every function gets aligned to it. I was reading an article about a business recently, which is growing close to 100% for the last 3 years continuously. and they do actually marketing KPIs. Their whole world is marketing KPIs on things like Marketo and HubSpot and all of that. That's their world. And it was quite resonating because we play in a similar world with ERP. So it was like, it's us in a CRM context or a marketing context. But they were growing 100%. And there was an article from the CEO, and it was like astonishing. How are you growing 100%? And today they are close to a $80 million, $100 million company. And they were like, one of the biggest two things we do very well. One, we talk about numbers all the time. Two, we have goals set for every individual, every function, every department, every leader, everybody in the business against that number. Everybody is focused on that one individual. And that's just the power of collectively coming into it. Okay, I've digressed a little bit. Let's come back to the actual KPI. So from a KPI perspective, so you've got the sales margin and cost. Now you're taking one step further and you're going to see target. And these are kind of stats and examples that we're able to do, where you compare last quarter, last year's quarter with the target, or on an ongoing basis on a revenue stats, which is showing underneath that, which is like a performance ticker. You know, what's my current situation as far as last month was concerned, or last quarter was concerned, or last year was concerned? How's the progress that way? BI fundamentally needs to give you information of what is working right and very quickly tell you where the anomaly is. If the BI can do that, you've got the information. Obviously, getting to there with the data and preparing the data and then building that KPI takes time. But if you're able to get that, yeah, you're there 100% there. So for me, why are we doing this type of analysis? You want to marry up the sales performance with the business targets. More importantly, it also allows you to refine your targets as you evolve from there, because target setting is an art as well. And it allows you to help understand what is my business expectation, what is my reality. I mean, I could claim I want to grow 100% this year. I may end up at 20%. So where's the realism in that target? That also it allows you to do. So that's like one step further. We've got the numbers. Now let's put some targets and see where we get to and how does a KPI show against that. Then you go one step further, and now you've got the high level sales cost margin. You've put a targets against it. Now, as a business, you may have people where you break down those targets against. And this is now comparisons coming in. So you've got comparisons for revenue, comparisons on margin, actuals versus target comparison as well. And of course, where sales reps are concerned, commissions as well. So commission analysis and those types of reporting. There are very clear objectives here you want to achieve with this. And purely, I look at it as a sales rep earlier and now a sales leader. For me, it is very important to understand why somebody is performing in a certain way, whereas the others are not, or why everyone else is doing this and the other person is not. This is not about, I don't believe in the whole hiring and firing kind of culture that unfortunately does exist in the sales realms today. But for me, it is very important: expectation, reality, work with, see the data, who and what I'm checking in that data, and where the gaps are, working towards a training and coaching plan to help them hit their number. So that's how I would structure it. But again, from a BI, KPI perspective, very, very useful for very quickly to understand how things moving around with all the reps, how they compare, and to be able to then go into training coaching plans to help certain people to get to a certain level, an average level or a high level that you would want. Then we go into some advanced KPIs. And again, going back to the whole ERP realms of it, where you have your SAP Business One, you've got a wholesaler, distributor, retailer, and so on and so forth. And you've got customers and products and regions and territories that you sell it. So the advanced version of this is, I've got my sales, I've got my cost, I've got my margin, I've got my target, I've got my rep. How do I take it one step further to analyze which customer is buying the most, which product or product type or product category is working the best, which region or territory is working the best. And all this information is very, very powerful, because if something is working, you have a basis of, can I take this and put it into another region or for another customer or for another product? Can I do that? And those are very important questions from a growth perspective. That's where sales come in, from pure growth perspective and realization of this is where we could use this and this is where we couldn't use this. That is one side of it. The other side of it for me is always the risk. I never want to be working with just one customer or two customers. I want that diversification. I want that spread of my sales across all these customers, because if one of them drops, my whole business does not exist. So that diversification of it, or that spread of sales between multiple customers or product types or region territories is very, very important. As an example, even though we only have one product, we do one thing and we do that very, very well, but we do sell in various regions, and in those regions we have various customers. So our diversification is more at regional level. I myself manage EMEA, and I've got two counterparts, one in Americas, one in APAC. They manage their regions, so we all managing the P&L. So it's spread over across three regions. So if one is not performing, the other can. And it's quite interesting. I mean, like as an example, Europe is on holiday during July, August, but South Africa is flourishing at that time. So I can tweak my resources. I can push campaigns in that direction. I can go do whatever I need to in a region which is more open to it. Christmas again, Europe and most of the countries where Christmas is celebrated, or probably the only big festival for there, goes into a holiday period. So in that period, maybe the Middle East is better, or to an extent, maybe even Asia is better for us to focus our resources on. But these are all questions that it allows you to do. So first the data, then the questioning starts. And as you can see, being a data company, a BI company, we are all about being data driven. We never want to make a decision which we don't understand. We want to go back and look at the data, because data does tell a story. But getting back to this, why are we doing this type of KPI? Why would you want to do a KPI like this? To diversify the business, or understand the diversification of the business. So risk, very important to identify any business risk. If I have one customer produce 80% of my revenue, as great as it may be, that in itself is a risk situation as well. Because if that one customer changes their mind, you wake up on a different side of the bed, and tomorrow morning and you say, right, I don't want SAP, I want something else. What happens there? So that's where you need to look at that. A bit of kind of Pareto law, which we do follow in our data world as well. And this one, I actually read a book on this, and it is incredibly interesting. If you look at any data set in the entire world, pick any, I'm not even talking sales, anything you pick out, you will start to find that the 80-20 rule can apply. It was quite incredible with some of the examples that was in that book. But this does remain 80% of your outcome with 20% of your customers. And it could be, your business could be 60-30, 40 or 70-30, but 80-20 is usually what that happens. And what it's trying to say is, whatever outcome or 80% of the outcomes come from 20% of all the causes, or 20% of the effort that is put in. And you could split it by customer, you could split it by product, you could split it by region. You want to try as much as possible move away from it, but what happens is you start to find pockets of it. So if I look at my EMEA region, 80% of my EMEA region revenue comes from 3 territories within that region. And that's where it is. You always want to grow another territory and see if it can catch up, but that data set works that way. So that's kind of the advanced level of KPIs, where you've got the sales cost margin, you've got the targets, you've got the sales reps, but now you want to take it one step further and get context on customer, product type, or region and territory, and see how that plays out with your BI type. Moving forward, I'm moving slightly away from the kind of sales I've already done the sale to now the CRM side of it, where your lead and opportunity and all those analysis come in. And this is also very important. And I know SAP does CRM, but there are other softwares that do it as well. And you can also have situations where you combine the CRM and the ERP data and see the life cycle of the customer as well, if you wanted to from start to finish. What are we trying to look for here? We're trying to look for leads, opportunities, and most important, conversion rates from start to finish. And where am I finding those leads or opportunities from? As an example, today's webinar is something G3G is trying to find leads from. So what is the KPI? What are we trying to achieve? And then trying to manage that through the whole process and identifying that through a dashboard or a report is what this is trying to achieve. Because then what you then use this for is, where should I spend my money on? Of course, you want to still diversify. You don't want to put all your money in one place, but where should I put my money on? And more importantly, expectation-wise, why am I putting my money here and what am I trying to achieve? And that is fundamentally very important. I think we've been guilty in our teams at times doing campaigns and stuff where we haven't put a target or a success factor or a KPI and saying, this is what I want to achieve. I think sometimes people get scared with targets and stuff. Targets is not about, if you don't achieve the target, you won't have a job. I think that kind of mentality and pressure piece has to go away. Target for me is all about focus. And maybe that's because I come from a sales background and I've done this for 10, 12 years now, and targets are second nature to me. And maybe now in conversation, if there isn't a target, I don't understand the conversation as well. But for me, targets are all about focus. Targets are all about setting expectations. Targets are all about getting those expectations as close as possible to the reality of the situation. And that's the most difficult part. If you're able to do that, and if you're able to do that, I mean, obviously BI, KPIs, reports, dashboards, all of that help. If you're able to do that, then yes, it is possible. And that's how sales, KPIs and dashboards and stuff work for businesses and efficient businesses that run through that. But I'd like to pass back to Ian now. That's the end of my presentation. So some KPIs, some ERP related KPIs, and some CRM based KPIs for you.
Thank you so much, Reid. So from your presentation, I've picked up the following key takeaways for me. Is basically you need to have a goal and objective that you can measure over time. Know your audience so that you can manage their expectations, because different roles in the business might want to see the same information, but in different ways to do their analysis. And then also take your goals and objectives and compare that to what's currently happening in the business to see if you're on target or if there's something that you need to change. And as well, measure something specific, measure specific outcomes to see if you're actually getting or hitting the target, or if there's something that you need to do to make improvements, or if someone is actually doing very well, how can we learn from them? And then last is also use your sales reports as actual tools to manage the risk in the business, as well as to go and check how you generate your revenue to make that as optimal and as cost effective as possible to generate the revenue. So that's a couple of takeaways that I've got from your presentation. So thank you very much. What we've also seen with small businesses is that they tend to think that certain processes or certain reports in the organization is not needed, and then they'll put those in place as soon as they grow. But in your opinion, why should small business actually be more worried or more concerned about sales reporting and reporting in general?
I think focus for me is a key word here, because when you're a small business, you have very little buffer, very little space to get to a point where you can take more risk. Business is all about taking risk and managing that risk. So if at a small business level or a small scale level, the risk is higher for you to be in existence or be able to continue. And if you want to go on that growth trajectory, these things give you focus. And for me, that is the most important piece. And yes, we do come across customers as well, this is not for us. We need to mature, we need to grow. I think from my fundamental perspective, your maturity is just on the reporting curve. A lot of people are happy with Excel. I've got 3 reports. For me, reporting is a never-ending journey. I've got a report, I've got a dashboard, I've been using it for 3 months. I'm telling you now, in 3 months later, I would want 3 other things extra on top of that, because I've realized now what that dashboard wants to tell me. I've realized now what right things work on that dashboard in terms of my decision making. And I've also realized I need a little bit more information to make further changes into a process or into a region or into a product to get my focus even better there. So for me, reporting is a never-ending exercise, and that's the beauty with softwares like SAP or other softwares that you see in the market today, where self-service BI is not a panacea anymore. You can get, once you're able to do the data preparation layer correctly, you can build your own reports. You can build ad hoc reports from an SAP Business One. That is possible today. And that's, for me, is where the business gets to on that maturity curve from a reporting. So they start with Excel, they want to go try a BI tool, but then they realize, okay, data preparation is important. And then they come to companies like ourselves or yourselves. And then if you're able to do the data preparation for them, then it becomes self-service for them. But I completely disagree. I do believe less is more. Yes, I'm not one of those which will say, go build 500 reports and that's the best way. No, I always want to start from less and then go make it more, so you get an understanding of it. And that's why reporting is like a never-ending journey. It's not just building the report, it's understanding the context of the report and then being able to use it for a period within the business and then seeing the impact of that report or a dashboard in the business and then going forward. Because you get one dashboard that you did not have earlier in the business, I'm guaranteeing you your conversations will change within the business. Because
so the visualization,
exactly.
Yeah, the visualization is also an important part of that. So that actually leads us into our next question, where you mentioned data preparation. So specifically with Business One, what do you think you need to keep in mind regarding the data that we put into Business One for reporting purposes in general?
That's a very interesting question, Ian. And even though we are on BI and data, there's one thing two things we say to the customers. One, use the core as much as possible of the product. The product's being built for a reason by a massive company who has today over 70,000 customers globally. There is a reason why they've done certain things there. Use as much as possible the core of the product. Of course, do customize stuff which is relevant to you, but customize only if it gives you a competitive advantage. If it is a process point which you've created for no reason, but just because it's in the company, question that. So that's one. But for me, where BI sits on top of it is, this now allows you to talk from an outcome-driven perspective. I want this field on my sales order page on SAP Business One because I need this on the outcome to show what it means. As an example, you're selling sales via different channels. I've talked about regions. It could be different channels. It could be e-commerce. It could be via your dealership channel or a partner channel. There could be a direct channel and you want to see the revenue. Now you need to capture that information somewhere on SAP. I would bring that channel as a dimension, financial dimension, or a field on a record on the sales order, which tells you this is what it corresponds to, and then be able to report on it. So you're working backwards from being an outcome driven. I think gone are the days where when you do want to do ERP implementation, that it is all about, let's do the ERP first, functional processes, and in retrospect, let's do some reports at the end of it. I think things are changing, and that's what I will highly recommend. Think about the outcomes you want, and then do and then manage the implementation against that. And again, the outcome gives you the focus, right?
Yes, no, true. And again, you can only report on the data that you have. So exactly. Whatever you need to report on needs to be available in the system.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for that. See, we've got one question. Let's see if we can just handle this question. So the question is, what is the best approach in setting up product hierarchies for reporting purposes? Do you have any references for best practice?
Okay. I think from experience, it's a really good question. From experience, the ways we've looked at it is we've looked at a simple, product categories because it it is how it is in your business. So simple product categories and reviewing it that way. We've looked at it margin analysis. So margin analysis, then you do something known as product classes. However you want to define it, that's different. But as an example, a product class would be class A is products with margin over 30%. And it could be revenue wise, you want to do class them, or it is cost wise, you want to class them. Usually it's revenue or margin wise that people tend to class them. So I would create the kind of hierarchy at that level and use that to report off. But standard product categories or on top of that, product classes based on what type of buckets you want to create for those products and analyze for you or for yourself on that. So I hope I answered the question. It's a bit, I would probably want to ask you a few more questions to give you a more defined one, but I hope I'm trying to take you in that direction which you wanted to go into.
I think if you know, John's got more questions. So that was John Westermeyer. So thanks for the question, John. If you've got more questions and you want to take this a bit further, we can get in contact and have a deeper discussion on that. So yeah, thank you for that, Reed. I think what we need to do is give it over to Alexi so we can go into a bit of a demonstration to actually show our participants what ZAP looks like and what you can do with it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen. And Ian, if you can just let me know when you see my screen.
See it. Thanks, Alexi.
All right, great, perfect. So what I'm going to do, guys, and thank you so much for taking the time to actually join us, is I'm actually going to take you through maybe building 3 reports. I know I'm conscious of time, so within 10 minutes, I'm going to probably build about 3 reports, put it into a dashboard, and even actually attach it to a report pack that you can actually use. So the first thing, obviously, is when you get ZAP Data Hub, and you know, these things I'm going to be showing you here now, we've actually got some on-demand training that you can, once you've got the product, you can actually go and click on these courses and actually go through this in your own time. And this will give you a better understanding of how to actually do what I'm actually going to be showing you today. So we're going to start off with just some of the systems that we do integrate into. So you can see as your SAP B1 and everything that Rohit was obviously talking about, where we give you an out-of-the-box model, meaning that we've connected to all the core tables and you get some pre-built dashboards you can actually start using. And those are some of the stuff that the KPIs that Rohit did show you. So we're going to actually build something new today. And I'm going to click on the new button. And essentially, these are all the new things that we can create. We can create a new chart. We can create a new table, dashboard. We can automate things to be sent out automatically from the system. And then we can also look at report packs. So we'll start with an analysis table. And this is a blank canvas now that we can actually use to build our report. We can now start looking at, for example, what we call measures. So when we look at data, we look at 2 different things. We look at what those numbers that we can count, so meaning the measures, and how do we want to group by, sort by, or slice by, and that's what we call dimensions. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand on measures, and now I can start seeing what modules I've actually got that are connected to my ZAP Data Hub. Now, we're going to do something around sales. I'm going to go and expand on sales invoice lines, and I've got these different measures I can start using. So I can start basically taking in like my invoice line amount, and I'm just going to drag and drop that into my columns. As you can see on the left-hand side, we now have a number. We'll start off and we'll look at, okay, let's have a look at a cost of sale amount, and we'll just drag that over. We'll also look at our gross profit amount. And now I actually want to go and create a calculation. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, type in C, for example, and that's going to bring up my custom formula. And I'm going to call this I'm going to be lazy and I'm just going to say GP percentage. And this calculation is going to be my gross profit amount divided by my invoice line amount. All right, great. So I'm just going to fix that format. So we're going to just select that, select my table. And like in Excel, for example, I just need to change format that cell to display in the correct format. So here we go. There's now showing me my GP percentage as a percentage. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to collapse my measures. Now I've got all these dimensions that actually relate to what I need to actually start looking at. this particular report I want to start doing is going to be my sales over time report. So I want to see how my sales are actually tracking over time. So we're going to do a little bit of some functionality here. So I'm going to actually just type in here my periods between, and I want to actually use now a time context. So I'm going to go say this is going to be from my 2-member. I'm going to select the time context over there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, select my SAP B1 model, and I want to say that this needs to be my first member in my level, meaning that when I look at a specific financial year, I want this to actually show me my first month of my financial year, and up to the time context that I'm actually asking for. So I'm going to actually go do something like that and click on apply. So once I click on apply again, I'll now we'll need to just put in another slice over here. And I want to just say that this should be my time context. So as you can see now, if I go look at a specific point in time, so I'm going to just take this month, for example, November 2021. I've got essentially the first month in my financial year, all the way up to my current month that I'm actually looking at. So we'll actually change this to, for example, to September. And you can see that now it's actually going to only show me those months. So we're going to change this now into something that we're going to put into a dashboard. So we're going to change this into a chart. I'll switch off the table. And now I can start spending a bit more time actually making this look a little bit better. So from here, I'm going to go and say, okay, my chart type, I'm going to select my cost of sale and my gross profit amount. And I'm going to go and say this chart type should be something like that. I'm then going to select my GP percentage and make it into maybe a line chart. And then I would need to do as well is create this as a new axis. So I'm going to go and select this, and I'm going to go and say I want a new vertical axis. All right, so there we go. That's something that we've got now. Now I'm going to save this as, so I'm going to just do one thing here, which is I'm going to remove this slices because we're going to add this slice into the dashboard. And I'm going to go and save this as my sales over time. So from here, I'm going to just select my webinar folder, and I'm going to call this sales over time. All right. So now what we're going to do is the second report, sorry, is we're going to go now and we're going to take this periods between away. And I want to see my sales for month to date. So I'm going to go and say, just type in month to date. I'm just going to go and say, I want to see this also. Let me just click on apply there. We'll say, I want to see a quarter to date. And really, whoops. And we want to see a year to date number as well. And I'm going to click on apply. Now, again, like we were doing with the other reports, for example, I'm going to change this chart type to maybe a circular gauge. And then I can actually say, okay, I want to see this in let's swap the series around. I'm going to just make it into small multiples. And now, for example, I'm going to just take one other thing here, and I'm going to just change this into a table, just so that I can select what I would like to actually see. So instead of looking at my cost of my cost of sale, gross profit amount, I only want to see my gross profit amount and maybe my GP percentage. And I'm going to go back and say select data. And as you can see there now, we've got our second report. So I'm going to go and take the table away, and I'm going to say save as. So from here, we'll call this just sales. All right, so the third report is actually where I want to look at now, and I'm going to just go again and switch on my table. I always, as a good practice, I always like to see my data in a table first before I start building this into a chart. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually say, I want to, my third report that I want to look at is going to be my GP percentage by company. So I've got some data here where I'm looking at this by multiple companies, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in companies into my rows. So now that I'm actually looking at this information by company. All right, so we're going to select my chart again. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to go and say, I want to see this by GP percentage. And I'll just take these small multiples away. And we'll just do it into something like this. So now, for example, I'm actually looking at this by all my companies, and I can see the GP percentage by those particular companies. We'll do another little bit of an extra thing here, for example, where we're going to do some conditional formatting. So on that GP percentage, I want to know when it's less than 3%, I'm going to change that to something that's red and give it a foreground maybe of black. And as you can see, even in the charts, it's going to apply that conditional formatting. So we're going to save this as now. And we'll call this GP percentage by company. All right, so now we've built these 3 reports. We're going to now go and actually create this as a dashboard. So from here, as you can see, I've got a blank dashboard, and it's just a case of dragging and dropping those reports that we've got. So from here, I'm going to look at my GP percentage by company, and we're going to drag it over there. We'll also look at, for example, my sales, and I'm going to drag that probably at the top here. And again, I'm then going to look at my sales over time and drag it over here. Now, what we'll do, the final thing of the final piece of the puzzle is we're going to go and put in the slicer that we had. And from there, I'm going to just change this into a time context. And then once I go and actually look at that specific dashboard now, we have now our report. So I'm going to save this as my sales report. So as you can see, this is what it's going to look like. And again, I can now start spending a bit more time making this look a lot better. So from here, we'll call this the sales dashboard.
Alexi, this,
All
I
right,
mean, this looks really easy, eh?
Very, very easy. And I mean, how long have I taken in? It's been like probably a few minutes.
A couple of minutes, yeah.
So what we've done now is we've got a report pack, and I've got some of these dashboards already dragged in here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go take the dashboard that we've just built, so the sales dashboard, drag it into my report pack, and this can now be automatically sent out from the system on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It will actually print it out into a PDF document. And because we do what we do is we talk about data governance, whatever data we actually limit within the system, when this report gets sent out to them, this will also apply that security. We also have something what we call conditional alerts. So for example, if my sales drops below a certain number, or my inventory drops, or I hit certain part of my target, when a condition gets met, to fire off a report to a specific target audience when we specify that. So we'll just give this a second. This should print it out quite nicely.
So while we're waiting for that, Alexi, I've got another question from John. He asks, once you've set up the dashboards, do you have to refresh it each and every time for updates, or do you get real-time live updates?
So this is an ETL process, meaning that we schedule the data to be refreshed. The time that you want the data to be refreshed is really up to you, and we automate that process. And when then you pulling the reports, when you're looking at the dashboards, it's obviously from the time that the data has been refreshed. So for example, as you can see, there's one of the dashboards that we've got where we've got a bit of a sales performance overview, and you can actually put some numbers in there. So you can actually automate this whole process where we're looking at, for example, one of our pre-built dashboards. And this is where we look at what we call the sales manager dashboard. I've just got a cover page over here, for example, and there's essentially the dashboard that we actually built. Great. Any other questions?
Can be sent out, so that can be sent out on a schedule, like you mentioned, right?
That's right. Yes.
Great, fantastic. Now, we don't have any other questions, John. I hope we answered your questions sufficiently. So yeah, no other questions at the moment. Thanks, Alexi.
All right, let me stop sharing, and I'll pass back to you. Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Alexi. So Please, if you've got any questions, let them come through for answers from Alexia and Reed. Just give them a couple of seconds. So if there's any other questions, please send them through on the Q&A. So I've got two questions here as well. Our SAP Business One instance is on premise. Is ZAP available on-prem or only in the cloud? I think, Reed, that one goes to you.
Yeah, no problem. So we are a cloud-first product. We are SaaS-based, so everything for us is in the cloud. You can deploy us on-premise, but we would like to understand why, because you're going to miss out on all the updates and upgrades that automatically happen. You'll have to take care of the infrastructure, whereas we take care of everything. And let's be honest, we are a cloud-first product. We will be able to support our product in our environment a lot better and a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than trying to get into your environments if there is a trouble. So we are cloud-first, but we do give option if you want to go on premise. It's not a problem, but we would like to understand and discuss this further.
Okay. I hope that answers that question. On the face of it, ZAP looks very similar to Power BI. What are the differences or advantages of ZAP in if this is the case?
Brilliant. Great question. And this probably could take another half an hour to discuss. Let me explain. We are not competing with Power BI. We are complementary to Power BI. So our product today has two elements to it, which is a data management layer where you prepare all the data and all of that great stuff and get to the cube and everything before you even start building the report. So that's one part of it. And on the front end, today, we allow you to use our BI tool, or you can use Power BI. So no issues with using Power BI at all. If that is an investment you've made in the business, we will 100% enhance that business, because Power BI does not do data preparation. Power BI is a great visualization tool. So if you want to go for a visualization tool like Power BI, happy days, no issues. We will be in the back end processing and formatting and giving data to Power BI for you to build reports, if that is the area. But a couple of key reasons people stick to us. So we got quite a few customers today on Power BI. I think one of our biggest has 600 users. But we also have a couple of customers who have Power BI for their operational teams and ZAP BI for their finance team. So a few things to consider when you look at Power BI, and if you want to do a like-for-like kind of comparison on the visualization layer, because the backend you'll be requiring for both of them. One, we do financial reporting, your core financial reporting, like trial balance, P&L, balance sheet, 12-month rolling P&Ls, date comparison, time comparison, prior period, prior year, prior month, prior quarter. Those analysis, those calculations with dates, we do very, 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 very well. And we've already pre-built that in our ZAP BI system. So those analyses come automatically. We just gave you a flavor of sales, but we've got monthly rolling P&Ls, which compares with actuals and budgets and provides variances there. We also have month-to-date versus year-to-date comparison. We also have expense dashboards where you do prior month, prior quarter, what was the expense based on the actuals that are coming in. So those data analysis, pure financial based reports, we do really well. Our reports allow you to drill down to the transaction. So you can actually go down to the transaction that is on SAP Business One. In our reports, Power BI may struggle with that. We do your classic row column reporting, which is again, finance based, very, very well. And then the report packs, which Alexi was giving an example, to be able to create report pack templates, to be able to schedule it. So every 9 a.m. Monday morning, send the P&L for G3G to Ian with the latest data in a PDF format, with the dashboards, with the KPIs, with the running commentary, rich text, logos, colors, all of that great stuff. That is something we can do within the system. That is one play where you may or not be able to do in Power BI. One thing to consider in Power BI, which a lot of people, they start with and then struggle with a little bit, is you need to learn another language called DAX in Power BI to do the calculations. So that can get a little tricky. But again, if you have an investment made around Power BI, we enhance your investment. We are not competing with Power BI. But if you are choosing, yes, I would like to compete with Power BI because I want to showcase what this is. But again, I think it boils down to the relativeness of the value, right? If you want more operational reports, that kind of side, rather than financial reports, then yes, I'll probably go visualization layer more onto Power BI side. But context is very important there.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's purely because you've taken care of all the data preparation already. It's purely a drag and drop exercise, and basically manipulating the data to how you want to see it visually. Yeah. Because all the calculations have already been done for you. You don't have to actually now go and build a year-to-date or a quarterly or any of those calculations.
Exactly. And that those date and time analysis can get very, very, very tricky. So yes, that's something we do very well, data analysis. Yeah.
Okay, let me just see if we've got any other questions. I've got a question here that says, do you need a license to actually receive that report? So the one that will actually show that gets emailed out, do you need a license? So
no.
Okay. So you only need a license to work in the solution to create the reports and that. So, but anything, if you want to consume the final report, in that format, in that PDF format, you don't require a license for that.
No, you don't. So it's only designer license and consumer. If you go into the portal and you want to look at those reports, dynamic reports, and click around and drill down and slice and dice, that's where you need licenses.
That's where you need a license. Okay, great, fantastic. And pricing model, it's subscription based, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Pricing is subscription based. We've got tiers of pricing, but depending on how many licenses you want and how much data size you need, we price it that accordingly.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's another question. Tatu asks, is there a setup cost for the solution?
Yes. So again, depending on requirement, but usually what we do is, because the value is so quick, and we do a lot of pre-built reports in all areas, finance, sales, purchasing, inventory, manufacturing. Because the value is so quick, we try and do one particular module at a time, and usually it is the finance module. So initial implementation, if it's standard and you like the pre-pack reports that we give out from the system that we built for SAP Business One, anywhere between 40 to 60 hours. Actually, you'll be ready in one day. The remaining time is actually validating the information on the reports or the pre-built reports that come out, because the first exercise or the most important exercise is for you to start to trust that my data from SAP is coming into the report in the right format. That takes time, because you're literally trying to validate each cell number instead of a KPI or a dashboard, like right to the bottom, lowest point, and then you start coming up. And I think even on the finance, we give like 8-10 reports, because we start with the TB, we validate that, then the P&L, then the balance sheet, and then you get the CFO dashboard, the expense dashboard, the income statement, then you get the APAR dashboards, then you get the APAR aging report. So all of that takes time. Validation always takes time, but 40 to 60 hours, realistically, yes. Set up, configure, install, and validate a module with reports you've gone live with, and maybe some training to be able to build simple reports off that, like Alexi trying to build a report in 10 minutes in sales.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we've got just time for one last question. The question is, can you increase and decrease the number of licenses at any time?
Absolutely. Classic software sales. So, you want to prorata. Yeah, exactly. It just goes onto your term.
Thank you so much, Rohit and Alexi, for joining us today. Your insights and passion for helping businesses get the most out of their data was infectious. And if you want to see more and would like to take the next step with G3G and ZAP, please let us know and we can arrange a personalized demo for you by ZAP. Rohit and I will reach out to you within the next 24 hours to set up some time to connect with you. So you will also receive an email containing a link to an on-demand version of the webinar for you to watch again at a later stage. And if there's someone else that you think might be interested, please forward it on to them as well. So thank you once again for joining us with this session. Hope to see you soon again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
It was such a pleasure, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.